win, and New Hampshire has just 23 delegates for the Republicans, 24 for the Democrats.
All right, Jana, thank you. Now to our guests for analysis on tonight's big victories in New Hampshire. Joining us in the newsroom, James Taylor, a professor of political science at the University of San Francisco, and from Petaluma, political analyst Brian Sobel. Thank you both.
Brian, first to you. Donald Trump actually outperformed his polling numbers tonight. What does this win say about him and his supporters?
That he has taken seriously, Frank, and he did the job that he needed to do tonight, and obviously the rest of the field were trailing him considerably. Very interesting result beyond Trump. I mean, Trump was expected to win, but he performed very, very well tonight.
Professor Taylor, now to you. What does this win mean for Bernie Sanders on the Democratic side? How big a deal is it for him?
I don't think it's much of a big deal at all. As much as I admire his campaign and the substance of his campaign, he won in a neighboring state, New Hampshire, where he was supposed to win. If he didn't do as well, then he is in real danger going forward. He doesn't have the demographic combination that he needs in South Carolina, so he's going to have to work hard. He's got some leads like Nina Turner and Killer Mike, the rapper, who's been making great inroads in the African-American population and vote in general. So if he can activate those individuals, Bernie Sanders can down in the ground in the Palmetto State. Perhaps they can make some inroads, but Hillary Clinton is relying on the black vote, which I think is premature because I think it backfired before with Barack Obama after he won a contest against her in New Hampshire. So this is something I think Hillary's campaign has to be prepared for.
Brian, how does Hillary Clinton spin tonight? She did not do well. She actually did worse than the polls had suggested. She underperformed in the polls, so she can't say that she exceeded expectations. She didn't do well with women, and she didn't do well with young people.
That's correct, and I think her spin is, I didn't expect to do well in the race tonight, in the primary tonight in New Hampshire, and we're looking at South Carolina, and she just has to take the loss, Frank, and move on. But it was Bernie Sanders' night, and he really came out strong, and he looked very energetic in his speech, and he's got a lot of people who are watching his campaign very closely now. Does it change anything, as a professor outlined? We don't know, but give Sanders credit. He came out and did the job he needed to do to stay in the race.
I agree.
And Professor Taylor, I want to follow up with what you said about the minority vote. Bernie Sanders is now reaching out to the minority community, but the Clintons have a long relationship with the minority community. Can Sanders win in a diverse state?
I think he can, but he's going to have to, do a ground game, and you can't rely only, when you say minority, on the black vote. I think he has to make an appeal to all non-white voters, as well as to white voters, especially working class voters, who he's become somewhat of a champion for in terms of the populist angle. So I think Bernie Sanders does have the potential to make inroads, and I think it's something that people aren't talking about, is the way in which the Asian vote in America is being taken for granted. People underestimate the way in which Asians have interpreted the anti-immigrant sentiments aimed at Mexicans and other immigrants from Central and South America. What people don't realize is Asians in general, that are the children or themselves immigrants, interpret those slights aimed at Latinos and other Central and South Americans as an anti-Asian sentiment too. So as much as we're not covering the Asian population in this dynamic, it's a factor that actually factors in later when we see in the aftermath that these alienating sort of messages have an impact amongst them as well.
Brian, last question. Let me go back to you and back to the Republican side. Is John Kasich back in business here? And what about Marco Cruz? He could possibly finish 5th.
Yes, it was a great night for Kasich, but like the poker game, all his chips were in. He did 100 town halls. He has nothing much out beyond New Hampshire. It'll be real interesting to see whether this gives him momentum. The guy that I thought came through tonight on the Republican side that people may not have thought would was Jeb Bush.
Yeah.
And to your point, Frank, Marco Rubio, still suffering from a bad debate the other night. Didn't have a great showing.
Yeah. Rubio now is unprecedented in presidential debates. This is going to be a famous moment in presidential politics.
All right, gentlemen, James Taylor, Brian Sobel, thanks so much.